I'm going to pass over to Ella for this, hopefully, well, I know it's going to be fascinating, exciting, invigorating session on leading, connecting and celebrating community action through the Black and Green ambassadors.
Hi, hello, hi everybody. So lovely to see some of your beautiful faces, and I know we are all so happy to kind of be here and be talking with you. It's definitely a shame that we couldn't be meeting you guys in person in Oxford, but I know that we're so glad that we were able to at least try to connect with you guys through this. So welcome to our talk. As lovely Tom did say, it's all about celebrating. Can you all hear me as well? Sorry, just checking you're all still there. I was looking and everyone looked rather blank then. I thought, oh gosh. I'm welcome to our talk on leading, connecting and celebrating community action. And we are the Black and Green ambassadors. So I just want to start off by telling you a little bit about the Black and Green programme, and a little bit about just a little bit of an overview really. So we are based in Bristol, and for those of you that might not know too much about Bristol, because I know that there are people joining from all over, Bristol is the largest city in the southwest of England. It is it's got 500,000 people, and about 16 to sort of 20% of those are Black and minority ethnic. So that is about 100,000 people. And for me, that's quite a large population of people. And Bristol sees itself as a progressive city. It sees itself as, and wants to be a leader in kind of climate and in kind of green kind of action. So yeah, it tries to see itself as quite a progressive city and a city that wants to be at the forefront, and kind of pioneering and progressive on all fronts, but certainly in the environmental sector. So luckily enough, Bristol did some work towards being green, and it won the Capital Green City in Europe, and which everyone was quite happy about, and it won the gold food standard for the city as well. And out of both of those amazing kind of achievements, Bristol was starting to be looked at as a pioneer in the green movement. And then very quickly people started to realize that there were disparities and gaps, and that there was a huge underrepresentation of those Black and brown communities in that sector. And I think most people on here will know that is quite indicative of the state of play up and down the country. So it's not a problem that is exclusive to Bristol by any means, but it was something that Bristol wanted to tackle. So that lack of Black and brown representation in the environmental sector, having one green capital city in Europe and having one gold food standard, but then not having that representation. And from that, we were born the Black and Green programme. So we're a collaboration between Bristol City Council, the Bristol Green Capital Partnership, and an amazing Black radio station in Bristol called Ujima. And they came up with our wonderful programme. And we are the second year cohort. And yeah, we've been enjoying our role, and it's been wonderful. So that is a little bit of an overview about Bristol, a little bit of an idea of what the Black and Green programme, why it started. It was to really address that lack of representation. And yeah, that's a little bit about the programme. And now I think my fellow ambassadors are going to tell you a little bit about themselves. Over to today, I'm going to pick on Mr. Vine. Mr. Vine, my lovely fellow Black and Green ambassador, Mr. Vine. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be in the Black and Green programme. Okay. In the time being, I'm going to kick it over to my other lovely ambassador, Ruth. And hopefully Mr. Vine's signal will kick back in. So let's see.
Hello everybody, really nice to be here and part of the conference. So I am one of this year's Black and Green ambassadors, and what brought me to the programme? Well, I've been really interested in sort of environment and living a bit more sustainably over the past few years. I think as it's becoming a bit more mainstream and hearing more about it in the news, I wanted to take a bit more action, but I didn't really know how to do it. And I've been I've seen the protests and the sort of campaign groups, so I didn't really feel comfortable about joining them. As Anna mentioned, there wasn't that much of Black and brown representation within those groups that I could see anyway through the mainstream, and so I didn't feel confident enough joining. So when I saw the Black and Green programme advertised in the summer, they're looking for new ambassadors, I thought this could be a really good opportunity for me to get more involved. And I think particularly since having a little boy last year, I've kind of wanted to make real changes. And also just to make sure that, you know, the future is better for him and better for all the other young generations coming through. And this seems as a programme to do that. I want to take a bit more stand, a bit more active in the sector. So yeah, so that's what brought me here to Black and Green. And like, I'm particularly interested as well in access. So I've got a background in disability rights. So I want to make sure that people have fair access to environmental issues, and that, you know, if people are going to be affected, that they are aware of that and they can actually have power in the decision-making processes as well. So yes, that's what brought me to the programme, and I'll pass over to Rosina. You can introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, it's great to be here. My name's Rosina, and I'm one of the 4 Black and Green ambassadors this year as well. I come from a background in community arts, and I help manage community spaces where culture and creativity and oneness is celebrated. And it's particularly important for me to make sure these spaces are available to members of the community who are from marginalised groups. I'm an artist myself, and I'm part of the Rising Arts Agency, which is a collective and organisation also based in Bristol that is run by young creatives, for young creatives, and our focus is to bring about radical systemic change through art. And I strongly believe in the power of creativity to bring about conscious shifts in perspective and bring people together and incite action. So I'm hoping to transfer this approach. In fact, I'm planning to transfer this approach into my work as a Black and Green ambassador. I got involved with the Black and Green Ambassadors Project because I've always had an appreciation and respect for nature and have wanted to protect it. And with the climate crisis becoming a more inevitable and undeniable threat, I felt that I needed to be more proactive. And as Ruth mentioned, I didn't feel that most spaces I didn't feel represented me, and so I didn't really feel comfortable being in those spaces. So I felt that the opportunity to be part of this programme was the best way for me to contribute and share my skills and passions and develop further in order to hopefully make a significant, long-lasting impact and be part of that ripple effect. I'm also very passionate about social justice and become increasingly aware over the past few years how social justice in all of its forms is inherently part of the climate justice fight as well. So yes, I want to sort of help build a new system that functions through mutual empowerment and respect. And I think that not this sort of idea of giving what you take, and I think that can be applied not just to how our relationship with nature and how we treat nature, but also our relationship with each other. So that's, for me, the Black and Green Ambassadors Project represents all that, and it really aligns with my principles and what I want to be part of. And I'm now going to pass over to Mr. Vine. Hopefully you're sorted.
Sorry about that technical hitch. Yeah, can everybody hear me fine? Yeah, cool. My name is Mr. Vine. Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. So I'm a Black and Green ambassador from Bristol as well. And the reason why I got involved in the programme is because this conversation is not really had, this climate change emergency conversation is not had in the Afro-Caribbean community collectively. It's not a conversation that, you know, I had growing up in the household, in my home as a child. And it's such a paramount, it's such a really, my mind's gone blank now, I've just lost my words. It's such a really important conversation that we do need to be having. So I had to ask myself like lots of questions as to why we have not had this conversation in you know, Afro-Caribbean communities. Yeah, so I travelled to, sorry to bore my fellow ambassadors, but for everybody else, we've been repeating ourselves, but I did travel to Jamaica in 2020, and everyone in Jamaica grows their own food. It's just natural that everybody kind of sustains themselves and recycles, and, you know, they grow their own food. And, you know, there are a lot of elders in the Bristol community and all over the country, actually, from the West Indies, who know how to grow food. They know about horticulture. It's just natural. Even the babies, they know what every plant is. And just thinking on how we can transfer that wealth of knowledge, you know, to the UK and to other parts of the world, because as we know, this climate change emergency is disproportionately affecting Black and brown people the most. So yeah, I really do have an interest in growing food and bridging the gap, and this industry is very, very white dominated. It really is. So you know, this is the inception of the Black and Green Ambassadors is to hopefully going to change that, to get brown faces in white spaces, because like I said, if this emergency is disproportionately affecting us as Black and brown people the most, then we really should be at the front of the conversation. And it's not just, you know, Black and brown people, it's people who are kind of people who live in high-rise blocks of flats. They don't have access to green spaces, and they're not thinking about you know, should we, you know, be recycling and growing food, because they have other pressing issues. They've got bills to pay. You know, Black and brown people, oh, we're dealing with racism and social injustice. So it's just about making them feel like this conversation is for them. And it is also about us having this conversation as a collective, all of us together, all ethnicities, so that we can find solutions. So yeah, it's lovely to meet you all, and hopefully you'll get to know us as we grow and learn and share.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ryan, and thank you to all my lovely other fellow ambassadors. I actually can't see anybody else in the group, so I'm trying to go through and kind of quickly see who's in the room so I can say hello to you all. Hi everybody. Yeah, so hopefully you guys, that's a little bit of background about us. For me, it was very similar as my other fellow ambassadors. It was exactly the same. It's just trying to bridge that gap between social justice and environmental justice, and trying to be a connector between Black and brown communities and the environmental sector. So we essentially try to bridge that gap. So I think I'm going to pass over to my lovely co-host Ruth, and she's going to introduce our lovely video.
Yeah, so you've heard a bit about us now and what brought us to the programme, and Ella introduced the programme a little bit. We're going to show you a video now which goes into a little bit more depth about the programme, and it's presented by the 3 previous ambassadors, so Roy, Olivia and Asia, and they were the first year ambassadors. So it's about their project, their year, but also generally about the programme as well. So can you show the video, Ella?
Lovely. I'm going to share my screen with you all. Here we go.
The Black and Green Ambassadors Programme, as the name says on the tin, it centralises the role that ethnicity and race plays in the environmental movement.
Bristol is sometimes seen as a real kind of hotbed of sustainability and environmental thinking, and it is, but I think that's always been a narrow slice of the potential voices that could be heard.
Black and Green Ambassador exists to empower, celebrate diverse leadership and community action.
We believe in actions that are good for both people and planet.
The mission of the Black and Green Ambassador Programme is to support and represent all the diversity of the city.
The commitment is about investing in leaders, which for this first year is myself, Roy and Asia, that can work with marginalised communities, businesses, organisations and government to help amplify voices, connect actions and create that environmentally friendly and just society for all.
What we'd like to see is to get diversity across all sectors, not just the environmental sector and the sustainability sector. The Black and Green Ambassador Programme was a whole series of different activities, development opportunities, research projects that all combined into this 12-month programme that we completed over the last year. We were completely thrown in the deep end in the best way possible. We got some training on how to, do radio production.
Love Ujima, love Bristol.
Hey everybody.
Welcome.
Welcome to
Hello, welcome back to Black and Green Show.
the Black and Green Show. We are delighted to have you with us. The community that listens to Ujima is predominantly from the Black and Afro-Caribbean population of Bristol, although I think, it reaches far beyond that. And so I think that's why it's such a unique opportunity to sort of talk about environmental issues in quite a mainstream way, in an accessible way.
Muhammad, it's a pleasure to have you today in our show. Could you tell us where the idea came from? Muslims for Bristol.
Izzy, if I come to you first, how do you sort of process that kind of news that came out of the IPC report recently?
I think it's important that we have the actual facts and statistics that we need in order to convince people that it is happening now and it needs dealing with now.
The main issue that I've explored during my time as a Black and Green ambassador has been around how people from Black, minority and ethnic communities have used outdoor space. What I really wanted to start to untangle was, what is that relationship? I conducted my research by going and having a conversation with individuals in a park or another green space that was meaningful to them in Bristol.
To be honest, the first experience I had properly outdoors when I joined the armed forces. I joined the Royal Marines when I was 17 and a half. I need to be open and I can breathe. We want to encourage people from the Asian community, the East African community, the Caribbean community, come out and enjoy walking and sharing one another's different cultures and different likes and dislikes.
My chat with Enrico was a really magical one. He has now set up a group to essentially take people outdoors on walks and bring them the benefits of being outdoors to communities who might not engage with those kind of activities. Getting access to green space. Often parks and green spaces aren't in deprived communities, or if they are, they're not well kept. So that was a huge kind of issue that came up. Often people just don't feel safe when they go to outdoor spaces, especially when we're talking about rural spaces. So I think being a Black and Green ambassador has definitely got us in the room of policymakers. We've got to speak to the Mayor of Bristol, we've got to speak to other members of the Cabinet, to Bristol's Climate Citizens Assembly, at London Climate Action Week, or for the National Lotteries Communities Can conference. Getting invited to go and speak at COP26 is, just a real recognition of maybe the Black and Green programme as a positive force in the world of sustainability.
During my ambassadorship, I focused on food sustainability, and my project was about how does cultural heritage influence environmental sustainability. I would like to engage different communities in environmental issues and to listen, to learn, to share all these kind of experiences. I think the link between culture and environment is undeniable because different people from different communities interact differently with the environment. We did food workshop and we collect fresh organic vegetables from the farm and then people cook it. People share their traditional dishes, what they used to cook and how they used to cook in their home country. It was very simple. We've got people from Pakistan, from Sudan, Somalia, India, some people from Caribbean, Egypt, Morocco. So it's quite diverse group. Also, they mentioned that the barriers for them to continue doing that kind of practices here in the UK. I would like to make it accessible for everyone, especially migrant people. English is not their first language, to contribute and to tell some sustainable practices from their culture. I'm always loving working with people from different backgrounds. Some of the participants, they said that we have no idea that we can hire allotment and then we can grow our ingredients for traditional food here. Yeah, and then I run craft workshop and I call it Craft from Nature for families, but we focus on children. Basically just to connect children with nature. Kids were very creative. They made a lot of crafts out from these materials. Did you enjoy the first one, which is around the food, and did you get any benefit from that?
Definitely, sure. I cannot imagine how much I was enjoying that, because the idea of having the food fresh from the farm and cook it and cook with the group and, you know, cook and talk. I like the organic food, the tomato. And
it was so delicious.
I learned the difference between when I go to get from the shop and get it fresh from the farm.
My biggest achievement as a Black and Green ambassador, I think it's giving this opportunity for people, normally their voices is not heard.
I've explicitly focused in on clean air and what that means to people in Bristol, in the UK and around the world. Bristol has illegal levels of air pollution, and it is disproportionately the Black community that are affected by this, but also those who contribute the least, suffering the most. Through talking to different communities, I learned a lot about how dirty air is affecting them.
Where I live, it has changed. It used to be a really clean air zone, say 15, 20 years ago, but there's so many more cars on the road now, and so the pollution has definitely leveled to a kind of level where I can feel it when I'm out and about.
A lot of people I spoke to have come from countries where air pollution is a lot worse. So Nigeria, India and Pakistan, where smog is a lot more apparent. So in a lot of ways, coming to Bristol has been a real benefit to them. But I've also spoken to people who have had loved ones lost through air pollution, who have noticed the effects on their lungs and their health, whose younger brothers and sisters have suffered from asthma.
I think you can feel the quality of the air. You can feel that within your lungs, and that gives vitality to your body. I've lived in different areas of Bristol, and I really notice a difference.
Me and Roy together, we had a survey that was just kind of to get a wide opinion from a lot of different people. I ran a photo competition where I asked people to take a photo of where they go to breathe. I've spoken on a lot of panels, but particularly the work I've done with the Environment Agency feels like quite a big achievement because they feel really official and proper. I think we've made a lot of difference in influencing the kind of traditionally exclusive environmental sector. We started exactly a year ago, so September 2020, when it was lockdown. So that was a challenge to try and do community work when you couldn't get out and speak to people.
I think the other major thing that kind of fed into our year as ambassadors was the Black Lives Matter movement. The conversations around race and equality were really live within the UK conversation at that moment, and that really fed into, I think, how we started as ambassadors, but also the reception that we got as a programme.
I think the biggest lesson for me has been just to do it. It's a great programme that has allowed me to get to know lots of different communities and also learn and grow myself in how I talk about, think about, act on race.
I think it's shone a light on what my strengths are and how I can best use those strengths to create a positive impact in my community and also hopefully in the world. Though we recognise that the climate crisis is a global issue, I think what is sometimes underrepresented are the effects that it has on all our local communities, and it's often those communities that contribute the least to those problems that have the most negative impacts on their day-to-day lives. I hope what we've done is represented some of those voices and brought some of those ideas and thoughts and solutions and exposed them to a wider audience.
So my advice is grab all these kind of opportunities to make a difference in your community.
My message to all the future ambassadors, all the amazing future ambassadors, would just to lean into it and have fun with it. Say yes to as much as possible, even when it feels uncomfortable. Grab that opportunity, take it, seize it, and run with it, because this is kind of like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Okay. So guys, I can't see anybody. Let's stop sharing.
So yeah, we hope you've enjoyed watching our video. I get inspired every time I watch that, and it summarizes beautifully what we're about, and it showcases and gives insight into what the last year's Black and Green ambassadors, Asia, Olivia and Roy, got up to, and all the research projects that they led on. So these are projects that continue to have a huge impact, and we hope to build on them. We hope to build on the relationships that they've made and the work that they've laid the foundations for.
I'm going to skip on to this next slide just so that it's just there, just because.
Yeah, a great online session isn't complete without a few technical issues. So, I'll just repeat what I last said was, yeah, so it's just a beautiful summary that showcases what our last year's Black and Green ambassadors, Asia, Olivia and Roy, got up to, and the, and the research projects that they led on. Potentially, Ella, do you think if it keeps on playing, maybe mute yourself for a while, or do you think it's sort of...
I can't even see you guys. Like, I'm just wondering if anyone can help with it. I'm like, I can't even. Okay, right, now I've got back on you guys, because all I could see was the presentation. I can't see anyone else, but okay, now it's normal again. Okay, fab, thank you. Now I think I can even mute myself. Yes.
Thanks, Ella.
There we
go. So yeah, so these projects that Olivia, Roy and Asia led on last year, they continue to have a huge impact, and we hope as this year's Black and Green ambassadors to build on the relationships that they made and the work that they planted the seeds for and developed. We've got some big shoes to fill, but we're going to be doing our own research projects with our own focuses. And in fact, some of the ambassadors from last year are still developing these projects and taking them further, which is quite exciting. So we hope you have a good understanding for what the Black and Green Ambassador Programme stands for and what we do. We invite you to share any questions that you may have about the programme and about our work, if you want to know more. So yeah, just keep the questions coming in the chat, and equally feel free to put your hand up if you'd like to speak. Mr. Vine's going to be taking lead in monitoring the chat, and the other two are going to look out for any hands that pop up. So we're now transitioning into our Q&A discussion part of the session, and I'm going to get things flowing and kick us off with a question that we get asked a lot. Ella, do you mind doing the honours and sharing that question? Well, that video seems to be very keen to just show itself off. There we are. So this is a question that we get asked a lot, and it never gets boring to answer, to be honest, because there's lots of work that needs to be done, really. So what can we do to encourage more people from Black and Brown communities to get involved in rural Britain, farming and growing and working with the land? So I think I'll kick this off by asking one of our ambassadors who would like to volunteer to jump in and answer that. There you go. Mr. Vine, please do.
Hey, me again. Hey everybody. Yeah, so as Rosina said, we do get asked this question a lot, and you know, you can ask it 1,000 times and all of us have different answers, but you know, one of the main things is representation. If people see themselves in an organization or see themselves in a movement, then they're more likely to get involved. And a great example of that is our amazing predecessors. They made it to COP26. Oh, we're still buzzing off of that. That, you know, the previous ambassadors made it all the way to COP26, and they were sitting in the blue area, and you know, it kind of went viral, which is such a proud moment. But it just goes to show how representation really does matter. Yeah, like I said before, this climate emergency that does disproportionately affect Black and Brown people, so we need to be able to somehow engage with you know, Black and Brown communities through the mediums of music, art, dance. I mean, everybody learns in a different way. So yeah, boots on the ground and having conversations. And I mean, the Oxford Farmer events like this is a prime example of how we, you know, break the ice and break bread and talk and find solutions in order to you know, kind of make change in the world. So yeah. And shall I pass the question to somebody else, or does somebody from the have a look in the chat? Does anybody have anything to add in regards to this question? Or...
I'll chime in a little bit, and whilst you can have a little look in the chat and see if anybody else has got something for us. Yeah, as we said, it is probably the question we get asked the most anywhere we go. They're like, how do we get Black and brown people to get involved in green stuff like you guys? And we're like, we're not the oracles. We don't, it's not a one-stop, you know, fix. There's not a one solution. Like, Black and brown people are not a monolith. There's no way of being like, this is how you get all Black and brown people involved in environmental sectors. Like, there is no one answer. I think it's, for me, yeah, I think representation is important. For me, I feel like I'm a bit of a, you know, not Debbie Downer, but I'm like, I don't think the onus is on Black and brown people, because I feel like there's a lot of gatekeeping, or there's a lot of people who are already in those roles, or who already work in environmental sectors, who are already, you know, deep in kind of the horticulture kind of society and kind of involved in that. And I think the onus is actually on them and on you. If you look around your organization and your growing group or your allotment or your farming cooperative or your whatever, and there are no Black and brown people, then maybe you should ask yourself, hey, there's no Black and brown people here. What are we doing about that? Like, what should we do about that? And that could be, you know, whether you're then trying to put out a recruitment drive and putting that into areas in your cities and towns and areas that are more densely populated with Black and brown communities, then that's something that you should definitely do. And it's kind of, you know, harpers back to that thing in the 50s and 60s of affirmative action. But it is that you're going, okay, I'm taking some real action on this issue and recognizing that there are not people here that should be, so I'm going to take it upon myself to invite them into that space. And that's just something that I feel is important.
We've got some questions here. One of the questions is, does the program connect with other cities in the UK? We're the only Black and Green ambassadors, aren't we?
Well, that's kind of why we're here, I would say. Like, we would love, and I know everyone involved in the program would love for it to be not just like a regional thing, for it to be national and for it to be international, and that is the aim of the program. We are the second year, so there was a pilot that we had last year, and we are the second year, so we are growing. And there are, you know, we've grown in size and we've added an extra ambassador every year, and we do want to continue to do that. And I know the program as a whole would love to we'd love to have Black and Green ambassadors in every city, you know, who bridge that gap. And mostly we definitely ourselves want to connect with any other organizations up and down the country. And I've been really vocal, as my fellow ambassadors know. I say that every time. I'm like, I see it as my job to connect with other organizations up and down the country. That's my role.
Yeah. Let's get to some more questions. One more question. Oh, interested, and this is from, sorry, I didn't say who Dora asked that question. Graham Willis, sorry. He says, interested about your feeling that the environmental sector doesn't feel like it represents you. Do you think this is changing, or have you seen any signs of change, and how can mainstream NGOs like mine move faster in this direction? Ruth?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think I've seen that it is changing, but it is still slow. I mean, we've talked about it in our radio show a couple of months ago, just how you know, Black environmental justice campaigners are still getting cut out of photographs and things like that. So we are still being removed from the picture. But bit by bit it is changing, but I think we definitely need more representation, and that's part of what our role is as Black and Green ambassadors, is to sort of spotlight the work that Black and brown people are doing within the sector. And as Ella said, there's a lot of, you know, we are doing a lot of work, it's just that possibly not always getting highlighted. So that's part of our role. I think more needs to be done, and it's just, I think one thing that we talk about is trying to get more Black and brown people into, say for example, into organisations and into spaces where maybe they not feel comfortable. But I think what we really need to do and what needs to change is that organisations need to go into the community. You need to sort of get into the community, into the local area where people are, and speak to them there and speak to them where they feel comfortable. And I think that will help with the change. Any other ambassador, any other points to add?
I don't think. Do you know what? I'm so conscious of the time, so I don't want to leave anybody's questions out.
Yeah.
So the next question that I've cherry picked is from Carmen Andel, and she has asked, "Can you talk a bit about what projects you're planning and what you're hoping to focus on?" And I'm gonna ask our ambassadors if we could try and keep this to like 30 seconds apiece, because of time, just bullet point what your interests are and what you hope to achieve. Start with Rosina.
Well, I was just trying to process how I can bullet point what I want, how I say what I say. But so yeah, as I sort of mentioned in my introduction, I'm very creativity is a really important part of my life, and I think that our environments. Well, I think creativity is going to be a great way to engage people in connecting with nature. And I think the more people who are connected to nature and develop that sort of relationship, the more we're going to develop an appreciation for it, and therefore want to protect it. And there's just a lot of barriers for the Black and Brown community to sort of be in green spaces and work with the land. So I'm very passionate about trying to find ways to engage people creatively and use creativity to change perceptions. And it's really hard to summarize what I want to say. Do you mind if I come back to mine in a minute? So
we'll move on to Ruth, because we don't really have the time to. Yeah, we just have to.
So I'm going to be looking at Black parents with young babies and their connection to green spaces, particularly during over the last couple of years of the pandemic. So that's my research project, hopefully.
And I think my research project is going to be based on growing, since I'm sure that might make a few people in this room excited. I'm probably going to be connecting with growing projects up and down the country. That's probably my aim. We're in the Justice Room, and it's a collab between Lion Anyway and Land in Our Names is incredible. There's some amazing stuff going down in Wolves Lane in London. There's some amazing stuff going on all across the country with growing projects. So for me, I'm going to try and connect, Black and Brown communities and growing projects up and down the country. That's going to be my research project.
And myself, I'll be as quick as I can. I would really love to connect with people who live in high-rise buildings, because they are literally disconnected completely. They don't have a garden, recycling is not really an option for them. And I live in the uptown area of Bristol, up in the Clifton area, and it's considerably cleaner than downtown. And the question is, why is that? Is it because people who live in kind of more kind of impoverished areas, do they not care about their environment? Just trying to ask those questions. But yeah, so I would love to have, like, my passion is to get street cleaning teams to make people passionate about cleaning where they live outside their homes, and then microcosms, then look at the bigger picture if they have pride in where their immediate kind of living quarters. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, so yeah, we've got so many ideas, and we it would have been nice if this was a 3-hour session.
If I jump in and summarize my project, I'm just going to try and summarize it. I think I'd be very brief. I'd like to explore how our very diverse Black and Brown community connects with nature, and look at all the practices that people are doing and the practices that people have been doing, and sort of document this through storytelling and various other ways, and as a way of sort of sharing and exchanging the knowledge and skills and perspective around sort of how to incorporate nature into your lifestyle to help to improve your health and well-being in a very holistic way. And I think if we can start exchanging these stories and experiences, then we're going to make access to information more accessible really, and we'll be empowering each other, and also we'll be spotlighting how Black and Brown people have always been actively part of environmental justice, but they just don't get that space. So I think it's about decolonizing the movement and showing how we are here, we're still here, we've always been here, and we continue to be here to inspire each other. And as well as yeah, then that sort of spreads outside of our community as well. The more people are involved, engaged, the better it will be for all of us to learn.
That's right. Well said, ladies, because this is a thing that as the Black and Green ambassadors that we kind of face with. We don't want to be tokenized, because quite often, 9 times out of 10, whenever we go to events, we are literally the only Black people in the room, and that is that's really, and you know, studies have been done and data has been collected, and you know, Black and brown people are not really part of the conversation. So this is why we are here. Another question by Jean Joyner. Do you work with or connect with Somerset-based Black to Nature initiatives, as there are lots of overlaps? I don't know if Ruth or Ella has that information, or Rosina?
So I personally haven't had any connection with them. I don't know if any of the other girls have.
I think
our program.
I think we're always looking for people and organisations and experts like-minded, well, with overlapping missions to ours to connect with. So yeah, I think if we haven't connected with them yet, we will be. So thank you for dropping that in. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just looking through these questions now. Rosina, did you have another question that you...
Yeah, Ella, do you mind going to the next slide? So our next question is another question we often get asked is, what are some of the challenges preventing Black and brown people from growing their own food? So who would like to kick off with this? And if anyone in the audience wants to share their answers to this, do put your hand up or share it in the chat as well. We'd love to hear from you.
I'm going to kick off by saying that I feel perception, isolation, you know, like I was saying before, Black people, you often speak to, you know, quote unquote Black and brown people, and they say, oh, you know, I've got other pressing issues, or people from impoverished areas of you know, the country. I've got bills to pay, I've got a mortgage to pay, you know, oh, you know, racism and things, you know, there are other pressing issues which kind of overshadow the climate change emergency. So it's not kind of something which is a priority to them. But yeah, this is, you know, we can change this. Ladies, do you reckon?
I'd throw in on that it's a lot of the similar barriers that a lot of people face, you know, in lower socioeconomic community face in general, which is like access to land ownership, and anyway, you know, is a huge issue. I know there's been some amazing talks over these past couple of days, you know, touching on that, and cooperative land ownership, I think is always, you know, if that's a challenge, then that's a solution, you know, to that challenge. But there's, like you say, there is just like a lack of even some people not even knowing that is an option for them. As you saw, Azia said, our predecessor said in the video, that during her workshops and her community engagement side of this program, she's spoken to so many people who did not know that they could rent an allotment. They did not know that was even an option to them, you know. So I think those are some of the challenges, and it is just about education. It's about really getting all people to have a better relationship with food, growing their own food in general, and then trying to translate that to you know, and speaking their own language and translating that to that community anyway, and really pressing on the personal impact that it has. We talk about this a lot. It's all about personal impact with any community engagement. How does it personally impact that person? And if you can talk to them about how it personally impacts them and give them some sort of incentive around that and how it will better their life individually, then you coercively move them to a movement. So
well said. Sonia, ELC, hi Sonia. She says, lack of access to land, ? It would be great to spread the word about the opportunities that do exist, and I would love to know more, so hopefully we can connect with Sonia.
I think, Sonia, you've touched on something there, is that there is a lack of access to land, but there are also opportunities out there, and I think one of the barriers to accessing is not knowing what's available to you. And I think that's one of our aims, is to sort of seek out all these projects and help develop them, help collaborate with them, and promote them, make sure that our communities go into our communities and make sure they know what's available to them, or what they have the right to access as well. So shall we move on and see what other questions. We could have easily done 2 hours of this.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. Yeah, Louise Smith Lacey or Lacey, sorry if I mispronounced your name. She says Lacey. Black Geographers, a network I'm a part of to get more people of Black mixed Black heritage, would be happy to connect. See, that's amazing, because I didn't realize, I wasn't aware of that organization. Yeah,
keep them coming, keep the offers coming, and yeah, that's what we want.
Is this the last question that we need to share with everybody?
We've got
this was the last question that we posed to each other, and we'll see if there's any others coming up in the chat, but yeah, this was one of the last ones.
Yeah, it might be worth, I think you had a really good idea earlier, Ella, of asking the audience to reflect on what barriers that they've faced in this sort of thing. And if you want to share in the chat any barriers that you've personally faced, or any barriers that you think certain marginalised communities might face, doesn't matter what community you're from, just put it in the chat if you've personally faced something, or you've observed someone else facing a barrier.
Yeah, we'd love that. Fill out the chat, just as many as we can get, really. It's just a fun little exercise. Just tell us any barriers that you've faced in terms of joining any groups, in terms of getting involved in horticulture, in terms of getting involved in agriculture or growing projects, or even just getting involved and out into green spaces and nature. So any barriers at any point that anyone has faced in doing that.
Yeah, but I mean, this question, which is up on the slide, how can we change perceptions that Black and brown people are not interested in rural Britain, excuse me, growing their own food? Like I was saying before, there are people in this country who are from the West Indies who know how to grow their own food. This is a conversation myself and my fellow ambassadors have all the time about, you know, the elders from Jamaica who they grow their own food. They know, and that wealth of knowledge is just being sat over there, and we're not tapping into it. They know how to grow and sustain and tend to animals and all of those things. So you know, maybe connecting generationally, you know, connecting with people, and just starting these conversations, and you know, us as ambassadors, as role models, and the whole Black and Green Ambassador program. I mean, that's kind of, yeah, what we're about, boots on the ground. Let me have a look. Somebody, Dora says, I think that that lack of paid jobs in growing is a massive problem.
And I hugely agree. It's one of my big things that I think is the problem, actually. And it's one of my biggest advice that I would say to any organization, even reverting back to that first question of how do we get Black and brown people to join our organizations or to become involved in these green initiatives. Incentive, the same way that you get anyone to join anything, and it has to be an incentive. And I think that, you know, for us, say with this program, yes, it was created because there is, you know, to try and tackle the lack of representation and the lack of diversity in the environmental, you know, movement. But then the program itself is a personal development and career development program. So we have, you know, we're meant to have access to mentors, we, you know, do various training, various webinars. And so it's personal development and career development for us. That's what part of the program is. So that is an incentive in ourselves. How did they incentivize these lower economic Black and brown, you know, women who are traditionally not involved in this? How did they incentivize us to get involved? Well, it wasn't just our moral compass, which yes, we all have, and it's all guiding us, and we all were interested in social justice and interested in environmental justice. But the thing that tipped that edge is that there was an incentive. There was something that was, again, it was a symbiotic relationship. You know, it was mutually beneficial for meant to be, you know, and it is. I'm sure on days when we work very long hours, we think, is this mutually beneficial? But it is, and it's wonderful, you know, and I think that's what you do. So all of your organizations, you make it a mutually beneficial thing. You will be gaining by getting these people from Black and brown communities. You will be gaining in a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of diversity, you know, in your organization. But it has to be an incentive for them too. And it's not just, oh, but you get to go out in the great outdoors, you know. Okay, great. Yeah. What is it that's really going to help them in their situation, in their community? What's going to help them in their personal impact in their day-to-day life? And I think you figure out that, or what value can you add to that community, you know, before trade, and that's that.
Ruth, can I see, Ruth, would you possibly give your opinion about how we can change perceptions from your perspective and from the communities that you identify with as well?
Yeah, I think a lot of things, I don't have that much to add, to be honest. I think most of it's been said, but I think one way to change perceptions is just by highlighting the work that's already been done within our community. So just giving people space, and like part of our program is to do that. So we use our radio show, for example, monthly radio show, just to give people that platform, that space to highlight what they're doing and really to promote what Black and brown communities are doing already.
That's it. And also the Oxford Real Farming Conference is a good example of these events where we've been giving that space. We're here, and I've gone to some amazing sessions, and it's all demonstrating it's that representation and showing that we are here contributing, and that there's so much that we can offer, and so many practices that have been around for centuries in indigenous communities and diasporic communities that are now being presented in the West as being this new sustainable thing. But it's actually, it's just giving that space, as you say. Yeah.
So guys, we're in our last, I was just going to say, we're in our last 5 minutes, and we've got our last sort of 6-7 minutes, and I was just wondering, if anybody had said any of the barriers that they faced in terms of getting involved in environmental groups or getting out into nature or anything. I don't think anyone has, which I find very surprising. So you're telling me no one's ever faced any barrier in terms of getting involved in a growing project or anything, that you didn't have, lack of resources, that you didn't have enough money to get, or the allotment was full and you had a 3-year waiting list. You did telling me no one's got a single barrier. That's interesting.
Oh,
come on, anyone?
No, somebody, Clara has just shout outs to Clara, has just put something in the chat. Just a small thing, but living in a housing co-op in the UK in Clifton with predominantly white people, I have found the conversation around nature and gardening and the language used quite cliquey and exclusive. Also Rosie has also contributed, saying watching the country file and reading about the 60s countercultures back to the back to the land movement inspired me to get into conversation and organic food volunteering.
That's perfect, because that was actually the next exercise. Funny enough, it was meant to see what some of your barriers were, and the next thing we were going to ask was what were some of your entry points. How did you get into some of this work, and how did you get into growing or environmental organizations?
Before we go on to that, I just want to respond to what Clara said about the language being used, like being quite cliquey and exclusive. That's really key, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of our aims. I think we all can agree that one of our missions in the work we do is to try and demystify the world of activism and specifically environmental justice and social justice and the merging of it, and to redefine what this movement is about, redefine what leadership is within that, and the language that we use. Get rid of all that jargon and make the language more inclusive, more accessible, and more just so people feel included and represented, and like that it's a space for them. So thank you for sharing that, Clara. But
thank you. We literally have about 4 minutes left. A couple more questions are coming through. I want to grab them. Sonia ELC says, I think feeling like you stick out in the countryside, there's safety in numbers. So very true representation, and not feeling like you're alone, and you kind of you stand out like a sore thumb, which might kind of put people off. Also, Jean Joyner says social and economic issues prevented me from engaging with the rural environment and or growing food. Okay. Last one, Graham Willis. There are some personal accounts on barriers. On our website. Okay, so we'll have to grab all of that information. And Mark Walton says, yes, I'm always angered by stories of Black and brown people who have simply overcome the barrier, feeling they belong in a rural or growing space every time. It's such a fundamental barrier, and one that is constant, and it needs to change. And one last one from Simon Ruston. If you encounter any issues with the planning system, please get in contact. I'm a planning consultant. Would love to assist. Oh,
Great.
that's
Thank
big
you.
respect. Yeah, make sure well, this is being recorded, so we can retrieve all of that information. But I mean, our time is we've got like 3 minutes left. Oh, and Simon is near Bristol.
Amazing. Yes, I think this session's been just so fruitful, because the whole point of all this is to start up these conversations, keep these conversations going, get us thinking about the barriers, but also think about the solutions. And I think maybe in the last 2 minutes, if we can take off on where we left off with you, Ella, about what got people into these things.
Yeah, like we say, what's your entry point?
Yeah,
you know, we talk about barriers a lot, I think, you know, and I think, like you say, there's a whole website filled with people's accounts of, you know, being kind of gate-kept and kept outside of sort of certain organizations, not feeling like they are comfortable. But for a lot of us, we've then also had the opposite of that. We've had an entry point, something that did bring us into this sector or brought us into an organization. And I think it's really important, no matter where you're from and what your, you know, background is or whatever, for you to think about, well, what got you interested in rural Britain, what got you interested in agriculture, what got you interested in horticulture, and what got you out into those organizations. Because whatever that slight tipping point is for you, that's what you need to try to recreate for others, and to more importantly recreate for others who are not traditionally in your, you know, kind of in your social group, you know, if that's the case. Like, it's trying to recreate that very moment that kind of got you interested in something, and try and recruit into areas that you don't normally go to.
And part of the...
Okay, well, I'm just looking at the time. It's 1 minute too, so I need to hand over to Ruth.
Yeah, I think, I mean, this has been a great session, as we kept saying. I think we could have had, you know, easily done 90 minutes plus for this session.
Hopefully we'll be back next year.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank you all for taking part, and thank you for your questions and for contributing. And we'd love to, we'd love to continue this chat, and you can actually do that on the Hoover app as well. So if you want to post any questions, that'd be great. Just let us know if you can keep this chat going. But there's also other ways that you can get in contact with us. So we're on social media, so on Twitter, and our Twitter is at Ujima Black Green, and Ujima is spelled UGIMA and then Black Green. And you can get in contact with us on our Facebook or our Instagram as well, which is at Black and Green Ambassadors.
Ella, could you share the...
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. I was like, if you just, I'm just trying to think it just so it doesn't go crazy. I'm trying to share the screen. I don't know if you can see what I can see. Can you guys see what I can see?
Yeah.
So we encourage you to screenshot that.
Yeah, you can also subscribe to our newsletter as well, so you can get updates of what's going on. And as we mentioned, we've got a monthly radio show, so that goes out on the last Thursday of every month between 10 and 12. So if you're in the Bristol area, that's on Ujima, which is 98 FM. Or you can also listen to it online as well, and the details are on the slide in front of you. And if you'd love to sort of collaborate with us, just get to know a bit more about the programme, you know, guest on our radio show as well, then you can get in contact with us through our website. And there's a contact form on our website as well, as you can get in contact with us then. And we're also hosting a workshop at the end of this month, so on the 29th of January. That's going to be a family workshop as well, and it's going to be based around energy. So save money, save the planet is going to be the workshop. So if you get in contact with us through our website or through our newsletter or social medias, then we can update you on the workshop as well. But yeah, we'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you for taking part. Hope you've enjoyed the conference as well. And yeah, thank you very much, and keep in contact with us as well.
With regards to our workshop, depending on COVID restrictions, it might go online. So if you're not based in Bristol and it happens to go online, then yeah, you get involved, you know, and just have a look at our website, and yeah, all the information will be there, or even follow us on our social medias, and you'll be able to get that information if it does go online.
Thank you. Thank you to the technical support team as well.
Yeah,
we really appreciate you holding us and being our safety net. And thank you to everybody who came to our workshop. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much for your participation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
See you next week. See you next week.
We look forward to hearing from you.
Message us. Email us.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.